These storms have been having a history of producing rotating cells, and that is the case now. So let's get right into it with Klystron 13. I will step over to the wall as I read the report coming in of the tornado warning. This was just issued. Not only do we have our tornado warning, but there's a severe thunderstorm warning behind it. The tornado warning is until 4:30, and that includes parts of Lake County, and Sumter County is where the severe thunderstorm warning is. So I'm just reading the data as it comes in. Again, this was just issued moments ago. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located over Lake Griffin, moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. So that's moving fast. Eustis to Verries around 4:10, so that's in just moments. And in Paisley and Pittman 4:20. Other locations included are Forest Hills. So this is a radar indicated tornado warning, and I'm going to go right in for the closest look at Klystron 13. Again, if you're just waking up, just joining us, and maybe your phone gave you a notification, there's a watch posted all across Central Florida. Even though Brevard County isn't included, we always say in or around the watch area, so you still need to be mindful of a tornado risk there. You're not totally out of the woods, but this polygon right here in Lake County, that is our newest tornado warning. So I'm going to pause the map to show you the latest imagery, and we are on the reflectivity layer right now. But the tornado warning that has been issued is likely going to be for the cell that is coming out of the Leesburg area and right near Lake Griffin. So actually, why don't I go back over to this product to see if I can pick up on any velocity couplets right here. And it does look as though we have this area of rotation that is bound by areas to the northeast. That's Okahumpka. This is 470, and then also Leesburg Highway. So this area right here, that's the red and green rotating. That couplet signals where there could be a possible tornado. Let me go back out a little further and see if there's another couplet showing up where we have our tornado warned storm near Leesburg and Eustis, and there it is, the green and reds that are showing up close together, very bright right here. This is bound by County Road 44, some of the other roads in the area, Treasure Island Ave, and Radio Road, Cypress Road, Creek Road. This is where our radar indicated tornado has been spotted. I can see this also from a different perspective of the shear rate, where we're able to detect these areas of shear. We usually look for the brighter yellows and greens. I'm starting to see some purple showing up in there too. I think what I'd be more concerned about is how there are these streaks of lighter yellows and greens where there has a history of producing some rotation in the clouds up above. So that is near to Verries. Let's go over to this view. Why don't I check the Tampa area to see if there's any rotation from that perspective. In fact, I don't know if that looks any better. Sometimes when we are at a distance from a storm, we're not able to see as well. I'm going to go back over to the wall to clear that out because I want to take you in to show you where that rotation is and where you want to seek shelter immediately because of a possible tornado. So we are in our tornado warned storm. Sorry, just a little easier for me to clear these things out, and I'm over here using the mouse rather than the wall. But either way, we know that Klystron 13, it's the world's most powerful television radar. This is a busy map right here. I know there's a lot going on. So let me go back over to the velocity from this perspective, and I'm just going to try to sample some different radar sites, see where I can get the best view of this rotation. Yeah, it's right here. You can see south of Leesburg, there is one couplet right here. Then I'm also seeing some additional rotation, again, where we have these brighter reds and the gray shaded areas. We really look for it to be more tight and with green, so we can see that there are just these areas where brief spin-ups are possible. But no matter where you live in this flashing red polygon, that means that a tornado is possible and you want to get into your safe place. We have been dealing with this threat for a few hours now, and if you are just waking up, and I just want to remind you that there is a tornado warning in effect, which means you want to get to the safe place of your safe place. We want you to get into an interior room or closet away from windows or doors because of the potential for radar indicated rotation to be advancing over some of these areas. You want to be in a sturdy structure. Again, mobile homes can potentially be damaged or destroyed in a situation like this. You want to take cover now. If you live in Lake County, you can see the storm that is to the west of Eustis and to the west of Tavares. This is where we have the possible rotation right here, and then there's been some other weak rotation to the southwest of Leesburg. So all across Lake County, from Astatula to Tavares, Eustis, Umatilla, up to Pittman, these storms have a history of producing rotation. That's why we just got back into the tornado warning coverage. In fact, as I loop this through, sorry, I'm going to go back over to the radar. I was working with the radar, but I still had those tips up on the screen. This loop, while it's the reflectivity and while this is a useful tool, we like to get a better inspection of storms when we are in tornado warnings by looking at the velocity product, because we can see the movement of what's happening in the cloud, within the cloud structure. We get a better indication of rotation. We look at the velocity, but the reflectivity is useful here to show you we have two individual cells and they both potentially are rotating, and they have the reds and the greens showing up. This one right here showing a little bit of a hook right here. That sometimes can be a notch where that funnel is trying to form, and then there also is a little bit of a notch right here. So we can look at that and compare it to the velocity product, and we can see where there is some of that green and red close together, because that symbolizes where things are moving towards the radar in green and away from the radar in red. And when you see those pixels close together, that is a sign of rotation. So just to the west of Eustis, I'll go in for a closer view. We can see those pixels that are showing up in the green and red. That's pretty well defined here to find those right next to one another. This is Mid-Florida Lakes, Harbor Shores, Grand Island. We're looking at a close-up view of Lake County. If you live in one of these areas and you're up early trying to get out the door for work, just wait for this to pass. These are moving fast, around 45 miles per hour. So I can put a tracker on it. Let me just go out for a wider view where we're in too tight and the storm is moving at 45 miles per hour. I can't completely show you a tracker, but as it moves to the northeast at 45 miles per hour, again, I'm just going to go from where that couplet is right here and put a track on it. This is moving northeast at 45 miles per hour, so it's going to be moving through this warned area, and 45 is around there. So these are some communities that will be impacted. That includes Grand Island, that includes Umatilla, and also if you live in Pittman, if you live in Johnson's Corner, Paisley, between now and 4:36, you want to make sure you get into your safe place, make sure that you are seeking shelter immediately and getting into a interior room or closet. Chances are 4:16, unless you're up early to get to work. We know that some industries you do have to get out on the roads right now. We know it all too well working the morning shift here at Spectrum News 13. If you can, just try to delay getting out on the roads until this all passes. That is what is recommended, because there is the likelihood of a rotating storm that could lead to a possible tornado. Again, a radar indicated tornado. Regardless, there are some very strong winds. While I'm on this velocity product, let me go in for a closer view to query some of these pixels to see what the wind speeds are aloft. Again, this is up above in the clouds, but those can mix down to the surface in order to be classified as severe. Winds have to get to 58 miles per hour or greater. So that's just one product. Let me go back over to the reflectivity. And we're watching these cells come through Lake County. It looks like the severe thunderstorm warning came off the board. The threat has lessened in Sumter County, but it is there for us in Lake County between now and And 4:30, that is our active tornado warning. There are additional cells back to the west. So this is going to be an ongoing threat as another line comes through. There was several tornado warnings needed for the greater Tampa area and to the west of I-75. It's been busy on Klystron 13 since midnight, but now the threat is in Lake County. There's also some more intense pockets moving through southern Flagler, northern Volusia counties. Why don't I check in on that real quick? No active warning here. This storm also with a history of producing rotation. Let me just see what's happening here with it. And there is a little bit of rotation appearing to the southwest of Bunnell. So just a heads up here, I wouldn't be surprised if a warning was issued. Crescent City, this is where some weak rotation is starting to be detected on Klystron 13. This storm has a history of producing rotations, so that is why we want you to just take this seriously, wait for the threat to pass. These storms are moving fast, but it is going to be a concern for us between now and 9 a.m. with our tornado watch that is in effect. Let me go back over to the shear rate, and I'm going to go into the tornado warning to find if that shear is appearing here. On Klystron 13, you can see some lighter streaks of yellow to the east of Umatilla. This is just one of the products that we use to detect where there could possibly be rotations. So near Leesburg, there is a couplet right here, that red and green close together, some weak rotation, and then the stronger rotation possible in this area of red and green, or gray and red, where there could be some very strong winds getting down to the surface as well. Let me go back over to the reflectivity because I want to step back over to the computer to get caught up if there are any reports coming in and if there are any photos. We love getting to hear from you as long as you're in a safe place. If you can share any reports, if you want to tweet us directly, you can get to me by or tweet, or what was formerly known as tweeting, on the app formerly known as Twitter. That's how you can get some reports to us at My News 13 Weather or at Maureen McCann 13. So I'm able to check in on those reports here. I'm also going to just see if anything new has come through on the alerts here. While I'm over at the desk, I'm just going to put up these tips just to remind you if you're just waking up and it's been a while since you've been in a tornado warning, or if it's something that you've never experienced before. If you just moved to Florida, you just want to make sure you get to an interior room or closet. It's a severe thunderstorm warning. These are winds aloft that are about 5,000 to 6,000 feet up in the atmosphere, but they can mix down to the surface, and they are gusting over 40 miles per hour. So some very strong winds possible here. But our tornado warned storm is near Leesburg. Let me switch the product to be able to go over and see the velocity here. So our tornado warned storm near Leesburg, moving northeast, now at 55 miles per hour. So if we see this couplet right here near Leesburg, that green and red close together, but there also are some very strong winds near Pittman, near Altoona, and Umatilla. This is moving northeast at 55 miles per hour. That is racing along. So you have the forward speed of these cells in addition to the threat for rotation, and that could cause some damage. And Lisbon, 427. Orange Bend, also 427. Mid-Florida Lakes, 429. Fort Mason, 432. So there is a tornado warning in Lake County. We have a severe thunderstorm warning until 4:45 for Flagler County, but our more imminent concern is how Lake County is under a tornado warning until 4:30. So we are going to watch this very closely. I'm just going to switch over to see a different radar site. That one isn't any better, to be able to get to where the velocity is showing up so we can see that just a little bit better in terms of the reds and green pixels that are close together that can signal where we potentially have a tornado. So these are radar indicated tornadoes. That's what we've had all along with these cells throughout the overnight hours. Get them back over to the reflectivity, and this helps you kind of visualize a little bit better that we have this pair of thunderstorms moving through Lake County with a history of producing rotation. There is one over Umatilla and Altoona, the other one near Leesburg, and now moving closer to Tavares and Eustis. You are going to experience some of those gusty winds and also the risk of a rotating cell that could lead to an isolated tornado. So back over to the velocity and that rotation seen near Leesburg, and we have some greens and we have some reds close together. Some of the roads that are bound in this area, if you're familiar with Leesburg, this is coming into town on Southwest 14th Street and being bound by East Main Street, also known as State Highway 500. That is where we have the potential for this rotating storm, as those pixels do indicate. Nick, what was that you have for us? We have a Leesburg camera that we can call up and kind of validate what we're seeing here on Klystron 13. So as we take you to Lake County for a live picture, some wet roadways. Of course, it's still early. It's the 4 o'clock hour. So hopefully people will stay off the roads until this threat passes. There is a threat for any tornadic development between now and 9 a.m. with our tornado warning, or rather watch that's in effect, but the tornado warning that is on the board right now includes a place like Leesburg, which is what we're looking at with those slick conditions. These storms are moving fast. If you can delay leaving the house and maybe just delay getting to work knowing that there's a tornado warning in effect, we always want to take tornado warnings seriously because of the more imminent threat. These are radar indicated tornadoes, and tornadoes overnight are an entirely different threat because of the inability to see them because it's dark out. So we got to rely on radar. We got to rely on the reports coming in. If you happen to see anything near you, you can submit any pictures on the Spectrum News app. Again, we're looking near Leesburg and these greens and reds close together. We're looking at areas between Leesburg and Tavares. This storm is moving quickly. It's moving to the northeast at 55 miles per hour. While that rotation is somewhat weak, what we can also tell from this product is what those winds are like aloft. Can plot some of these here on Klystron 13 to the east of Umatilla and Altoona between around 30 and 40 miles per hour. So it looks like a new tornado warning now for Lake and Volusia counties until 5 a.m. So here we are, 4:26. We're going to stay with this live because they have extended that tornado warning into Volusia County because of the storm near Leesburg or near Lake Griffin. And that is moving northeast now at 60 miles per hour. I mean, the storm itself is moving at 60, so that is going to contribute to the forward speed. We're talking some really threatening winds here in Lake County. So now the threat extends into Volusia County, where we have our tornado warning that goes until 5 a.m. We can get a better picture of these two cells, this pair of thunderstorms that is moving through Lake County. Again, we are concerned about a potential tornado right here with the cell near Leesburg. And draw a line right, or a circle right here. But then there's also this cell producing potentially damaging winds near Pittman and Altoona. And all of this is moving off to the northeast now at 60 miles per hour. That is really fast. So let me put a tracker on where we see that rotation. And again, I'm just staying over here by the wall because I can maneuver the radar a little bit easier when I'm using the mouse as opposed to the touchscreen. So I'm going to stay over here just so I can get into the velocity product. And here is where we have our couplet of the potential rotation, and as this moves to the northeast at 60 miles per hour, that is just screaming along. That is why the tornado warning is shaped the way it is, because it's going to be advancing towards some of these communities between now and 4:40 in the morning. The warning goes until 5. So Leesburg, Tavares, Eustis, Umatilla. This is where the storms have a history of producing rotation, have a history of producing that shear. And that's what winds rotating with height are indicated here on this product. I'm not seeing anything that the data is picking up on overly here. I'm going to go over to the severe threat, and sometimes this can pick up on rotation, but what it does indicate is that there's been a lot of heavy rain. I also don't want to lose sight of the fact that there is a flood warning in Marion County until 6:45. That is a threat in and of itself because of the rainfall amounts that have occurred there. I know we've been more focused on the tornado warned storm, but look at the last 12 hours. And while Ocala has a flood warning because ground saturated from recent rain, there has been some really heavy rain training over some of the same areas. That's why there's a flood advisory in Sumter County, and you've seen about 4 to 5 inches of rain in these areas, and it's kind of training over the same areas. So that is going to produce the additional flood threat. The advisory area, fortunately, the rain has lessened there. The 2 warnings that we have here, one goes until 4:30, so that's about to come off the board. That is this polygon right here. That warning goes until 4:30, I believe, and then this one goes until 5. So that's the one that extends into Volusia County, and that means you have a warning posted. A warning is more imminent than a watch. It means that rotation is imminent, and this is radar detected. So it's showing up here on Klystron 13. We'll go in for a closer view to show you some of the neighborhoods that are affected. We're looking at County Road 44 and State Highway 50. That's what these reds and greens represent, where there could be a possible tornado. So that is in Lake County with our active tornado warning. If you are just waking up, if your alarm goes off at 4:30 and you turn on the TV, it's what you do every day. This is a different morning because we have a severe weather threat. Oftentimes during the summer months, it's the evening commute that's more affected, but it's the morning that is going to have the risk of severe weather. A warning needs to be taken seriously in Lake County if you live in Leesburg, Tavares, Eustis, Umatilla, Pittman. These neighborhoods are outlined in that tornado warning, and you want to get into the safest place of your safe place. I know many of you still at home, but as we get closer to maybe a time that you leave the house, just wait until the threat passes. I have the velocity called up here on Klystron 13 because this tells us the movement within the cloud. This tells us how things are rotating. It's one thing to see where there's generally rain, but to get a better inspection of the storm, to see how things are moving, that's our clue to know more about rotation. So there's another pocket of rotation near Pittman and Johnson's Corner and Paisley. So that is also included in the tornado warning. This entire box, this entire polygon posted until 5 a.m. So we're here to bring you continuous coverage. And if you are just waking up and you have some reports to share with us, if there's something happening in your neighborhood you want to let us know about, please, you can post pictures on the Spectrum News app. I'm checking that here periodically behind the scenes. I have not seen anything too concerning from the overnight hours, but I will count on those pictures coming in on the Spectrum News app. I'm also going to be counting on the reports maybe coming in on social media. I know our producers are standing by kind of combing through some of those if there's anything to relay. Again, I have called up the tornado alert map, but let's take a look outside in Claremont because this is Lake County. You're just to the south of the tornado warned area, but there likely is going to be some lightning seen off in the distance, not only there, but with our camera in downtown Orlando. If you are in Lake County and you live in these areas that are under a tornado warning, you want to get to the lowest level of your home, an interior room or closet. That is the best thing you can do, but also have multiple ways to get alerts. It's possible that your power could go out. So it's great if you're able to watch us right now, but you may not be able to because of a potential power outage. So have multiple ways to get alerts, knowing that we have a tornado threat ongoing. And the other bullet point, have shoes nearby, just in case there's debris, in case there are broken items. It is a opportunity for you to just have those things close by and be safe in the event that we did have a actual tornado being reported, which I have not seen yet, but there is the potential for there to be a radar indicated rotation, or that's what we've been seeing all morning long since we've been covering these warnings for over 2 hours, and that is what's occurring here in Lake County. So I have the velocity product called up. This is what tells us where there's spin in the atmosphere, and we look for these pixels to be kind of mixed close together, to have the red and the green or the gray. This signals where there could be rotation. So we're seeing that northeast of Leesburg. In fact, noticing some of the rotation that is right here. That's where there's some red and green close together. But this general area, if you live within this flashing polygon, you want to take this seriously. Should a tornado form, they can be erratic and they aren't necessarily going to move in a direct line, but they can form and we can get these brief spin ups. It's not just here, but I've also seen some rotation near Paisley and Lake Catherine. But nonetheless, while we're on this product, which is detecting the movement of the particles or the droplets within the cloud structure, we can also tell the speed of them. This is up above, but these winds can mix down, and we've seen them 40 to 50 miles per hour, if not greater. I also don't want to forget how we have a warning in Flagler County. So let me go over to this product to see if there's any rotation showing up here, because this cell also has a history of producing rotation. This is a severe thunderstorm warning, but that can be replaced by a tornado warning if that rotation is being observed. And there certainly is some rotation to the north of Bunnell, west of Palm Coast. This red and green that is showing up right here, this couplet, that is by Old Dixie Highway, Hargrove, Grade Road, and some of the areas to the west of I-95 in that severe thunderstorm warning. Go back over to the reflectivity, and while this is a very useful tool to show us where the rain is located, and you kind of get a better sense of things because this is kind of your more traditional view of the radar, it's those other products that give us a better inspection of what's happening within these cells. But while I have up the overall view, very clear to see that everything is moving along to the northeast. There are these intense pockets embedded, but there are additional cells back to the west, and I'm going to have to watch these closely as they come off the Gulf of Mexico into Levy County, southwest of Denellen and Crystal River. Any of those could also potentially be rotating. So in Lake County, this is where our most imminent concern is at this time because of these two storms that have a history of producing rotation, and one over Umatilla and then the other advancing towards De Leon Springs. But again, the original area where that was observed that there could be rotation was near Leesburg and Lake Griffin and Tavares, but that seems to be shifting off to the north and east. Let me go back over to this view of the velocity. Again, we get a lot of lakes here in this part of Central Florida, so that shows up here on the mapping software, but there's also heavy rainfall going along with this. There's also frequent lightning. I've taken the lightning off the radar imagery because sometimes when we're zoomed in, it gets a little too distracting. But there also could be some of that rotation to the east of Pittman in Umatilla. I'll zoom out just so you can see it a little bit better, but this is going to be moving towards Lake Catherine, and some of these wind speeds, as we've detected them here, have been over 40 miles per hour, even nearly 50 miles per hour. And again, that is up above. Those winds can mix down to the surface, and these have the potential of not only moving with the forward speed of 60 miles per hour, but they have the risk of producing severe winds, which is 58 miles per hour or greater. I'm just going to go over to the reflectivity and leave this up while I go back over to the computer, because I just want to see if any new reports have come in while I've been standing at the wall. We are in continuous coverage for a tornado warning in Lake County, and that extends into Volusia County. So that's what the flashing red polygon is. That is our imminent tornado warning because of a tornado possibly being observed by radar. And then there's also a severe thunderstorm warning for Flagler County. A few more minutes on that. So I'm just going to leave up the radar while I get caught up here on any new reports that have come in. At 4:37, it was announced they're continuing the tornado warning. It goes until 5. There are 2 storms, as mentioned. That's what we've been seeing on radar. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Paisley, and another storm capable of producing a tornado near Lake Yale. So that's that pairing of couplets that we've been seeing in Lake County. And if you look closely, it seems as though the threat has lessened for Leesburg and Eustis, but it is there for Umatilla and it's there for Lake Catherine. So I'm going to go back over to the velocity, see if we can pick up on that rotation. Again, it's kind of tough to see from this data available, but perhaps right there and perhaps right here. These are areas where there are potentially could be rotation. But no matter where you live in that polygon, that's where I want you to be seeking shelter, getting into the lowest level of your home, an interior room or closet. We are going to stay with this live through 5 a.m. So another 20 minutes, get back over to reflectivity, just because that is showing you these 2 distinct thunderstorms that have a history of rotating. And then there's also the storm that is in Flagler County that has a history of rotation. This is going to be offshore soon, but Bunnell, you're getting a good downpour right now. And there has been some potential rotation here to the west of Palm Coast, to the west of Bunnell. The greens and the reds showing up here on Klystron 13. So I do want you to just be prepared to seek shelter in the event that does flip over to a tornado warning, but nonetheless severe winds are possible. The map is busy. There's a lot going on. There are numerous flood advisories. Ocala, that's a flood warning for you, and there is more rain back to the west, so it wouldn't take much to produce flooding given the saturated ground. Looks like another warning was just issued for Flagler County. This also is a severe thunderstorm warning. So it looks like a second one was just issued. I'm seeing that just by looking at Klystron 13. Let me look at the text. And this is where winds of 60 miles per hour are possible and a tornado is possible. We've been watching this since it came out of Marion County, since it came out of northern Sumter County. This storm has a history of rotating. And yeah, that aligns with what we are seeing on Klystron 13, this area of rotation looking to the west of I-95 for those exits near Palm Coast and bound by State Highway 5 and Otis Stone Hunter Road in Espanola. These areas are subject to rotation that could produce a possible tornado. Okay, I'm just plotting some of these wind speeds aloft, but winds to 60 miles per hour, not out of the question with that storm. So we have 2 warnings in Flagler County, and then our tornado warn storm in Lake and Volusia County. So let's go back over to this velocity product. And you can see it better from the reflectivity, how there are 2 distinct cells, but they're kind of training one behind the other. So as these continue to move to the northeast, they are going to be producing that heavy rain over the same areas and the gusty winds in conjunction with the tornado threat. I'm going to go over to the shear rate, and I'm seeing some of those lighter greens and yellows to the east of De Leon Springs. Nick, what was that? Do you have a camera? All right, we have a camera from Flagler County, so why don't we call that up right now? And this is looking at I-95, certainly a dark scene. It's still going to be 3 hours or so, 2.5 hours until the sun comes up. We're looking at mile marker 278 looking north. The camera's shaking. It is breezy out there regardless, and that wind is going to be with us for the duration of today. In fact, I'm looking at our list of alerts, and I missed it earlier, but a wind advisory is posted till 4 p.m. I've just been so caught up with the tornado warnings that we do have a wind advisory posted. So that is Flagler County. See if I can call up our Flagler Beach camera. It is going to be dark, but we can see what is happening if there's any lightning. And yeah, not much to see there. I thought maybe things could be flashing a bit, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, the map does indicate that we have our active tornado warning for Lake and Volusia counties, 2 severe thunderstorm warnings in Flagler County, and then a flood warning in Ocala. But our biggest concerns right now, I'd say, are with ourselves in Lake and now Volusia County, which is why we have our active warning. There are a pair of cells that are kind of moving over the same areas. You can see it from reflectivity, but I'd rather go into the velocity, as this is able to show us the movement and the motion within the storm. I'm going to try one other site to see if maybe this gives us a better perspective. Again, sometimes when you're at a distance from these different radar terminals, we don't get the best picture as opposed to if you were really close to the radar and you get good resolution. But what we can tell is that there is this one area of rotation near Umatilla and Altoona, and then the other area north of Lake Catherine. So there are 2 areas where there's potential rotation. If you live here and you're just waking up and you're seeing this continuous coverage, remember, we want you to be prepared and not scared. We know that conditions are stormy out there right now, but it's going to be a fast-moving event. This is the big picture. I'm just leaving this called up while I grab a sip of water, and then I'm going to head back over to the wall. As the area of low pressure comes out of the Gulf of Mexico, that is moving towards northeast Florida, but we have this trailing line of thunderstorms, and this is, as forecast, this is going to be a potential severe weather threat for us. And with this area of low pressure that's going to be with a stalled front, it's going to hang around for the next day or so. We have a continued risk for unsettled weather, but certainly this morning is when we have our most imminent concerns, especially when we talk about nocturnal tornadoes, because they're harder to observe, they're harder to see. People are sleeping. We don't get as many reports coming in, but also maybe people aren't getting the alerts if they're sleeping through them. So that's why it's so important to have those notifications turned on, so that it's your cue to not only turn on Spectrum News 13, but get into your safe place, get into an interior room or closet to get in the safest place you can be within your safe place because of these tornado warned storms. Again, I'm looking north of Lake Catherine, also near Umatilla and Altoona. That is where our active tornado warnings are posted. It looks like they did trim away this box, so it does not include Tavares or Eustis. You're just on the border. Leesburg, you are no longer in the tornado warning. So the threat has shifted, and that is what we're able to see on Klystron 13. These 2 pockets of rotation. Looks like the radar just swept around and got new information. So we have potentially near Altoona and also north of Lake Catherine, along the St. Johns River, south of Astor. That is where there's this rotation being observed on Klystron 13. I'm going to check a couple of other different products. I'm going to look at the severe weather threat, and sometimes this will pick up on concerning rotation, but to see green, that means one of your big threats right now is for there to be just that heavy rainfall, which could lead to some flooding in the poor drainage spots, as we have several flood advisories that are in effect. The rotation tracker tells us where there also could be some winds turning with height. Looks like the data is not coming in too clearly for this part of central Florida, but it has been observing some of the rotation in Flagler County. In Flagler County, we have a severe thunderstorm warning for Palm Coast. This has had a history of producing a possible tornado. There's still some weak rotation here. You can see a couple couplets, that red and green close together. These are moving fast. They're soon going to be offshore, but what we have to remember is that there are additional storms back to the west. So the threat is not going to be over when these storms move offshore, because there is more that's going to be materializing. This is what we're going to have to monitor throughout the morning. But right now, our biggest concerns are in Lake County and Volusia County. We still got another 12 minutes or so left on our tornado warning, and this is radar indicated. If there are any reports that you can share with us, I would love to hear from you. You can contact me on what was formerly known as Twitter. You can contact me there at Maureen McCann 13. You can find me on Threads with that same name at Maureen McCann 13. And you can find me just through the Spectrum News app, because that's how we can get your pictures. I'm actually going to check that app here in a moment to see if any new photos have come in. And Janelle, it sounds like you had something that... Okay, we have a Palm Coast camera. That would be great. And yeah, that is some low visibility because of some really heavy rainfall. And you can tell how the camera's kind of bouncing around. We're looking at I-95 northbound. So Palm Coast getting that storm that has a history of rotating, that has a history of producing severe criteria winds. That is what is moving over this camera right now. So Flagler County, you are in a severe thunderstorm warning, while we have our tornado warning that is in Lake County. So thanks for calling up that camera. Of course, it's still early. We're going to have an update on traffic as we get into the 5 o'clock hour, and hopefully people are just going to stay off the roads until the threat lessens, although it is an ongoing threat because of our tornado watch that goes until 9 a.m. So we have the threat for heavy rainfall for you there in Flagler County, but also in Lake County. So we can go back over to Clystron 13. Thanks for calling up that camera. Helps us visualize what's happening on Clystron 13 to see that in person with some of those cameras. And again, your pictures, your video coming into our news desk, always so important, but we always want to make sure that you're in a safe place if you're doing that. And if you're in a tornado warning, we want you in that interior room or closet until the threat passes. We don't want you to be scared, just be prepared. Get to that safe place. You can take us with you on the Spectrum News app, and you can keep watching along so that we can let you know when the threat lessens. If you live in Leesburg, if you live in Eustis, the threat has lessened for you, but these two cells are still capable of producing rotation near Paisley and Lake Catherine, Umatilla and Pittman, then another near DeLeon Springs. We continue to check in with the velocity product to find these areas of rotation. Again, there's just one couplet right here west of DeLeon Springs and another near Pittman and Umatilla, where the winds potentially could not only be severe, getting up to some 60 miles per hour, but these storms are moving at 60 miles per hour too. In fact, why don't I put a tracker on it? I haven't done that in a while. And these radar returns of the reds and the magentas showing some really intense pockets of rain, but you can tell just based on the structure, and radar analysts are familiar with what's called a hook echo, or you look for this curvature because that is where a funnel may be trying to form. So we can see that from this reflectivity layer. But I also want to put a tracker on it while we're here. Let me zoom out just a little bit because these are moving so fast. I'm going to have to draw these out at 60 miles per hour. Here is the first storm. I'll go from right here, moving northeast at 60 miles per hour towards some of these communities. That includes Holly Hill and Orban Beach. So we're talking Volusia County and eventually towards Orban by the Sea. That's where we have one active warning, and then we have another behind it. And this is moving off to the northeast around 60 miles per hour towards some of these communities. I'm going to step over to the wall and grab some water. I'm just going to leave that up for you so you can see the overall picture. Here's another view of Clystron 13. And Hang on a second. What was that, Nick? If Jerry's here and he wants to for just a minute so I can get some water and cough, if Jerry's standing by, I know he may have some information. I haven't had a chance to check in with him yet this morning. So we do want to continue with our continuous coverage because of our active tornado warnings that are in Lake County and also in Flagler County. I'm just going to turn off my mic for a second.
Yeah, and take a breather, Maureen. You're doing a good job, and we'll take a look at the roadways. Maureen's been showing some of these cameras as well. This is I-95 here at Palm Coast Parkway in Flagler County, where we're watching some of that severe weather right now. It is a busy, active morning on the roadways. We've updated our crash indicators. These are all the active crashes here in the Metro Orlando area right now, so very busy out there. The good news, most of these do not have any road blockage, and you can see to the north we're really dealing with the severe weather. It's hard to kind of see I-4 here with the green contrasting with our weather overlay, and there's 95. You can see this weather's coming towards the Daytona Beach area. So certainly if you do have to be on the roadways on this early Thursday morning, give yourself extra time or try to delay your departure time, and then we can take you back to Palm Coast. You can see that it's pretty active up there as well. And we have some other cameras as well we wanted to show you. This one's going to be here in Volusia County. This is a look here at the US 92 International Speedway Boulevard near LPJ Boulevard. The pretty slick conditions for that morning drive. We do have a crash I did find on one of our cameras. This is here at State Road 429 northbound here at Winter Garden Vineland Road. This is West Orange County, active right now for that morning commute. Had a lot of road work that was planned for this morning, including a shift on I-4 West lanes near Central Florida Parkway and Darrell Carter Parkway. Looks like all that road work may have been halted because of the severe weather we're dealing with right now. So when we zoom in, we can show you some of these crash indicators that show some of the active incidents we're looking at. So we got like a crash here. This is going to be Colonial at Pine Hills Road. There's also a structure fire here we're looking at near Boardman Street. So we're looking into that. So that's happening in the metro area. But again, we're also focused on what's happening here. And I want to send it back to Maureen now that she's got that sip of water.
Well, thank you, Jerry. Good to have you here, especially to provide that insight on the roads as we get closer to the 5 o'clock hour. And hopefully people can just kind of delay leaving the house if you can because of the threat for an isolated tornado. We have 5 minutes left on the tornado warning in Lake and Volusia County. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does get extended maybe into Volusia County just because of the rotation we've been seeing. This is the reflectivity, and you can see how those storms kind of training over the same areas. And while the rotation may not be as tight as what was observed earlier, there still are some pockets of that red and green close together near De Leon Springs, also near Umatilla and Lake Catherine. So these brief spin-ups remain a ongoing threat. I'm going to go back over to the shear rate, which really hasn't shown me anything too concerning here. Let me see if I can get over to the shear rate with respect to this radar right here. Yeah, that does show how there are these areas of light green and yellow north of Lake Catherine, but also the shear rate in Flagler County. We haven't had a tornado warning here in Flagler County, but there has been some weak rotation being observed near Palm Coast. You just saw that camera. It's windy nonetheless, but this is soon going to be offshore. That severe thunderstorm warning also goes until the top of the hour. The tornado warned storm until 5 a.m. and that rotation, let me see if I can try to get it from a few other different radar sites to pick up on some of those areas of the green and red. Near De Leon Springs, certainly there is still some of that green and red close together. And it's not as concerning as it was for Leesburg and Tavares as it was a little while ago. These storms are moving fast. They have a lot of forward speed to them at 60 miles per hour. And looks like the tornado warning may be extended. Yes, I think that's why the shape kind of looks the way it does here. The tornado warning has been extended into Volusia County because, no surprise, the storm is moving along, capable of producing a tornado near De Leon Springs, moving east at 30 miles per hour. and it is going to be continuing its path to the northeast towards places like DeLand, DeLeon Springs, Daytona Beach, and Port Orange, Ormond Beach, South Daytona through 5:30. So to the control room, we're sticking with this until 5:45. That's our new tornado warning. This is moving fast, so once it's offshore, the threat will lessen. But a tornado warning now continuing for Volusia County into the 5 o'clock hour. So let me pause this and go in for a closer look. I know this map is really busy. There's a lot going on, a lot of flashing polygons. The red that is showing up in Volusia County is going to be, or the red polygon symbolizes how there's the active tornado warning. And there are two overlapping, but the one in Lake County is going to drop off at 5, and this one goes until 5:45. The view of Klystron 13, let me check this out from a different velocity product. This is the one I wanted to look at. It is showing how there is some rotation that is near DeLeon Springs. This is what we've been watching all along. This is moving to the northeast at 30 miles per hour. And as that continues its path into Volusia County towards these communities, you want to seek shelter immediately. Looks like that's just a rural area of Volusia County, so no towns are being populated here. But I just mentioned them with the product as it came in from the issuing authority, where we get the official tornado warnings. The communities impacted: Port Orange, Ormond Beach, South Daytona between now and 5:30. Spruce Creek also could be impacted. So that's our new tornado warning that is on the board in Volusia County. There are numerous flood advisories too. I know I haven't been paying as much attention to that, not because it's not a concern, but when we have tornado warnings, we want to give that the priority. But remember, we've had a lot of heavy rain over some of the same areas, and you can tell that there's additional rain kind of training back in from the southwest. So the flood threat is going to be ongoing in Marion County, Citrus, Hernando, Sumter counties also facing some of that heavy rainfall. We were showing this earlier. Let me take you back over to the 12-hour rainfall totals to pick up on exactly how much rain has fallen, because that is another hazard in itself, how the rainfall amounts have been really heavy. And if you get any more rain on top of these areas, we have 3 to 4 inches in this yellow swath right here. So the flood threat is going to be a concern in addition to our tornadic threat. So let's get back over to the velocity to see that cell coming out of near DeLeon Springs. Let me switch back over to this one, and we'll be able to detect where we have the potential for some rotation near DeLeon Springs, moving towards DeLand, and moving towards eventually Port Orange, Daytona Beach, Orange City. Not finding those returns coming in too clearly based on the data that's available to me right now, but you can see how, wrong one, the reflectivity reveals how we have these areas training over the same areas. This is why we have our active tornado warning in Volusia County. So again, I'm over here at the desk. Why don't I go back over to the wall so I can interact with the radar there. And here we are, top of the 5 o'clock hour. We are in continuous coverage for a tornado warning in Volusia County. The watch goes until 9 a.m., the warning till 5:45. We've been with you for continuous coverage for the better part of the last 2.5 hours. I believe we went live shortly before 2:40 with our first tornado warning, and then we have stuck with these as they have moved across the peninsula. And right now, the biggest concern is in Volusia County. So the watch goes till 9 a.m. It's an area-wide threat. as I zoom out while I have the reflectivity out, because this is your more traditional view of the radar. If you're just waking up and you live in Melbourne, Mico, Sebastian Inlet, and along the Space Coast and into Osceola and Orange counties, fortunately, there isn't any rain to interfere with your early morning travels. This is an event that's been affecting areas north of Orlando since after midnight, or north and to the west of Orlando. But right now, our concerns are in Volusia County, where we have our tornado warning. So that is what we want to stick with. This is the reflectivity. Let me go over to the shear rate, because this can tell us where we have some spin in the atmosphere. Looks like the data a little bit sparse right now. Go back over to the velocity to be able to tell us what's happening here. Let me try a different source. And this also is pretty spotty, but where the rotation was being observed was near Deleon Springs and moving to the northeast around 30 miles per hour, which is why this polygon that has been drawn in extends over to Port Orange, Daytona Beach, Holly Hill, and up towards Ormond Beach and Ormond by the Sea. So I'll go back over to the severe threat layer. This can tell us a host of different things that's occurring within the storm, but when the primary hazard is rain, sometimes that can obscure the view of what a tornado may look like on radar if we're getting those really heavy rain returns. And that's what's showing up as a threat here, but let's go back over to the reflectivity. And again, this storm moving to the northeast at 30 miles per hour. So I'm going to take from about right here and go northeast at 30 just to give you an indication of what areas could be impacted. And this eventually be moving towards Daytona International Speedway at 5:31 this morning. So with the radar indicated rotation, it is still dark out. We don't have any good views of this area whenever we have the threat of nocturnal tornadoes. We can't see at night, so we have to rely on viewer reports coming in. We have to rely on the radar, and this has been a radar indicated tornado. And we can see some of that rotation also near Lake Catherine. Let me just go back over to one of these velocity products to be able to pick up on where there could be some rotation. Again, our tornado warning is this polygon right here that extends north of DeLand. But remember, in and around the warned area, you want to be seeking shelter, getting into an interior room or closet, getting away from windows or doors if you live in this area. So the wind speeds that we've been able to detect on Klystron 13, and I can plot some of these here with these pixels. We'll see if any of these will come up. Yeah, those are pretty small. I wanted them maybe to just indicate a little more of where that rotation is. Of course, we don't want to see those strong winds. We want this storm to come through with little fanfare, but it is tornado warned because of the threat of what has been observed on radar with rotation as this moves along really quickly to the northeast around 30 miles per hour. There were two individual cells coming out of Lake County, and you can see how this has kind of merged into one that stretches back to the west of Orange City. So much of Volusia County between Deleon Springs and Daytona Beach experiencing that wind-driven rain right now, also experiencing frequent lightning. I took the lightning off a while ago just to get a better view of the storm, but actually as I turn it back on, it's not detecting any lightning, so I guess that is a good thing. But I want to be able to also show you where there's some potential rotation or where there's some shear in the atmosphere, because that can tell us a little bit more about the structure of this and how it's going to be observing the wind speeds aloft. It looks like the data here also a little bit sparse. So let me go back over to this view, and I think I'll stick with the reflectivity as we send it over to our Daytona Beach camera. This is the view that is coming to us from I-95 southbound mile marker 251. So wet roads, thankfully not too many people on them right now because of it being an early hour, but knowing that we have a threat for severe weather that continues through 9 a.m., you want to just check in with Klystron 13 before leaving the house. Wait for this threat to lessen. Again, while you have that camera called up, I'm just stepping over to look at the reports coming in, if there are any, about any damage or any observed tornadoes. I'm not seeing anything here, but I am finding that on this camera, the slick roadways, and we have the camera kind of shaking around a little bit. That's what we've been seeing throughout the morning. Again, I'm just kind of flipping through to see if there are any new reports to pass on. Looks like we do have a severe thunderstorm warning back on the board. Just got issued for parts of Marion County. So when we go back over to Clystron 13, if we can, this is far northern Marion County, a new severe thunderstorm warning. This is mostly in Alachua County, though. This is where This is also where there is potential for winds to 60 miles per hour. The storm located near Archer, moving 9 miles north of Williston, northeast at 30. So we're looking at the northern fringes of Marion County. This is going to be moving towards Gainesville. So the threat in Marion County, again, really small, just a fraction of Marion County included in this, but up towards Micanopy as this storm continues its path into Alachua County, it will be capable of producing some strong winds and also some weak rotation being observed too, to find this little cluster right here, also right here, but that's in Alachua County. But for our friends in northern Marion County, just a heads up, you do have a new severe thunderstorm warning that was just issued. Back to Volusia County, because this is where our tornado warned storm is. Just going back over to the reflectivity, I'm going to leave this up so we can see where this storm is affecting. And this is a loop of the last 30 minutes. It's moving fast. About 30 minutes ago, it was near Leesburg and Eustis, and now it is advancing towards Holly Hill, Ormond Beach, Ormond by the Sea. And we have the continuation of that tornado warning. That's what this polygon represents until 5:45 for this part of Volusia County. I've been trying to observe the velocity, going through some different products here to get you the best view that I can of where we can see that rotation. And that rotation was evident near De Leon Springs, and that is now moving towards the areas to the east. Chief Meteorologist Brian Carrick up early and just stepping into the Weather Center. So good morning, Brian. Good to have you here with us. It's a busy morning, and we've had a lot of warnings. It's been very busy on Clystron 13. Our active warnings right now are in Volusia and in northern Marion County, but we always want to give more attention to our tornado warned storm that is there in Volusia County. So everyone in a tornado watch, with the exception of Brevard and now Osceola. Looks like the threat has lessened there. So that has been removed from the tornado watch. This goes until 9 a.m. But the threat will be there for additional thunderstorms through the afternoon. What I'm going to be watching, or what we'll be watching throughout the day, is not only the batch that is coming through now. I'm just keeping it on the wide view while I step back over to the wall. There are additional storms trailing back through the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll have to find additional storms moving on shore. In fact, that's what has produced that renewed threat in Marion County. Some of those storms coming off the Gulf and making their way past Crystal River, Denellen, and towards Micanopy and towards Orange Lake. Now for Volusia County, again, we have the reflectivity called up because this gives us an indication, is your more traditional view of the radar, showing you where the downpours are, where the more intense pockets are. And the radar just swept around Lake County. This is pretty much over for you. It's just crossing by the county border, because Umatilla, Paisley, this was just over you within the last 20-30 minutes, but it goes to show how fast this is moving, and it will be offshore within the hour. But I continue to check in with the shear rate to see if we can pick up on any of those pockets of shear. Again, sometimes when we're at a distance from the radar sites, we're not able to get the most clear picture. I look for the red and the green pixels close together to be able to observe where there could be some of the wind shear being observed, but looks like this right here near De Leon Springs, finding some of those pixels of the red and green close together. Let's see if I can get a better picture from this product. And still kind of sparse, but it remains true that we have a tornado warning posted for Volusia County. This goes until 5:45. And remember, the warning is different than a watch. If you're just waking up, just tuning in, hoping to catch weather on the ones, well, we've been in continuous coverage for the better part of the morning, since a little after 2:30, because of tornado warnings that came out of the Gulf. And this storm that's in Volusia County actually originated coming out of Sumter County and Lake County, and now it has survived the trip into Volusia County. So some intense returns west of Ormond by the Sea, Holly Hill, the Tomoka River. We have been finding several flood advisories needed too across central Florida. The flood advisories have been lighting up the map. I know we haven't been paying as much attention to those, but flooding still a real concern, something we want you to be prepared for if you're heading out on the roads. There is a flood warning for Ocala, the greater Ocala area, until 6:15 this morning. But our active tornado warning is for Volusia County. Again, we watched this come out of the Leesburg area, and the sheer rate that we've been trying to observe not showing up all that clearly, but we know that this storm has a history of rotating. We know that this storm has a history of producing damaging wind gusts based on radar data. So that is giving us the indication that these threats are still going to be there for Daytona Beach. If you live in Holly Hill, Ormond by the Sea, and Ormond Beach, the reflectivity shows how you're experiencing that very heavy rain. Hasn't been a whole lot of lightning, but the threats are there for any ongoing tornado threat to keep this tornado warning going until, I believe, 5:45 this morning. So that's why we have been in continuous coverage. The tornado watch is posted area-wide, but this area is in a warning. So remember, if you live in Ormond Beach, Holly Hill, Daytona Beach, Ormond by the Sea, interior room or closet, away from windows and doors. It's so important knowing that even outside of a possible tornado, these storms are moving along very quickly, so they have a lot of forward speed, and they could be producing those winds aloft that can get down to the surface of 50 to 60 miles per hour. The threats are going to be moving offshore eventually. You can see how this is just passing by the St. Johns River, the back edge of it moving through De Leon Springs, but that looks like a pretty strong wind gust that could be associated with that little squall that is on the back side of that cell. So that is what we are going to be tracking here on Klystron 13. Let's see if I go back over to this product. And yeah, Ormond by the Sea also coming up on one of those gusty winds, perhaps, that is observed from the radar, showing those brighter greens. Okay, I'm just checking my watch to see if any new alerts are coming directly in, and maybe there are some updates on this tornado warning. And this is looking by Ormond by the Sea. You can see this cluster of green right here. Just wanted to sample some of those winds aloft. They are mostly 30 to 40 miles per hour. The wind gusts are going to be just one of your hazards. Go back over to the reflectivity because I want to step over to the computer to see if there are any new alerts coming in that I want to get caught up on. So this is the overall picture, the threat mostly to the north, and with the ongoing concern for Volusia County. I just was stepping over here to see if we have any new report.
Check out the Jacksonville report too, by the way.
Okay.
Which is coming in.
And it looks like watching a couple of cells of rotation in Alachua County. Yes, we were watching those. That's with the new area that was issued for a warning, but it looks like we do have a local storm report coming from Palm Coast. And let's go into the radar right here. Thank you for calling this to my attention, Brian. Remember, we saw that storm coming through Palm Coast. It had the severe thunderstorm warning, but also radar indicated rotation. EMA reporting power lines down and a vehicle rolled over because of a possible tornado. So this was a cell that was showing possible rotation. The threat has lessened in Palm Coast, but the report coming in that 2 miles west of Palm Coast, a vehicle rolled over, power lines down, a possible tornado. So a heads up in the Palm Coast area for some of that damage. And it shows what these storms are capable of doing. And just to the south, we have our tornado warned storm in Volusia County. DeLeon Springs getting some of that very heavy rain right now. And the rotation has been evident on Klystron 13. I'm going to just remind you that we were in a tornado warning. We're in continuous coverage. This goes until 5:45, and not finding any new reports on this tornado warning coming out of the Melbourne office, just to see if there are any new reports in. But we continue with this tornado warning until 5:45, knowing that this is a radar-indicated tornado, and with these storms having a history of rotating overnight, as I just mentioned to you, that report coming out of Palm Coast for tree lines to be down and potentially a possible tornado. So that is where the report is coming in from. Again, this is just being submitted, and this indicates that a possible tornado caused a vehicle to be rolled over, power lines down. We were watching those very gusty winds on Klystron 13. So that's what these storms are capable of doing. Let me clear that out for you to be able to show you how things are mostly focused on Volusia County right now with heavy rainfall, wind-driven rain. We've seen it on our different traffic cameras. Let me go back over to see if there's any of that rotation being observed. Gusty winds near Ormond by the Sea and also north of DeLeon Springs. Again, the pixels here are kind of sparse to be able to pick out any strong areas of rotation. But we continue to watch that near DeLeon Springs. In fact, that's showing up a little bit more so with we can overlay that with the reflectivity, and that does align to the southwest of to the southwest of DeLeon Springs. That is where there's not only heavy rain, but we can go back over to the reflectivity and see that there, or rather to the velocity, and see if there is some rotation. So that is why we continue with our tornado warning. And I'll go back over to the wall, but we're going to have Brian Carrick standing by at the desk here as we have our continuous coverage for our tornado warning. And thanks for coming in early, Brian. It's been very busy with our tornado watch. If you're just waking up, just joining us, the yellow represents where we have a watch, but the warning more imminent for Volusia County. The storm that has prompted this warning originated coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. And we've watched this move northwest, rather move to the northeast over the span of the last 3 hours or so. And there are additional storms that we're going to watch that will follow suit, moving into this volatile environment where there could be additional rotation. Now, North Florida getting some of that heavy rain. This is all moving along very quickly, but the atmosphere is still going to be unstable for additional storms that will form throughout the morning. So it sounds like we do have a camera that we can call up in Daytona Beach, I believe, near LGPA Boulevard in Daytona Beach. This is I-95 southbound, mile marker 265. And now that we're into the 5 o'clock hour, more people on the roads. It's wind-driven rain and perhaps some lightning at times, but this is an area in a tornado warning. If you can just avoid leaving the house, if you can, wait till the threat passes if you live in Volusia County, because we have our active tornado warning. But if Brian is standing by, he'll give us an update on what he's seeing. I'm going to get caught up on some of the data that I've been wanting to see while I've been at the wall. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm going to grab some water.
Yeah, thank you, Maureen. Very obviously a very busy morning overall so far, and we still have more activity to come. Let's reset the situation here at 5:21. If you are just waking up, we have a tornado warning that's still in effect for a portion of Volusia County, a big portion of Volusia County, and this is in effect here until 5:45. We have had ongoing storms with rotation. We've had Some reports of damage coming in this morning as well. But right now, our biggest concern, some broad rotation north of Ormond Beach and another area of rotation out near De Leon Springs. Both of these cells, as we see on Klystron 13, continue rapidly moving off toward the northeast at 40. And as we take a look at a couple of products here, I'm going to start with the shear rate. And on a day like today, we've got a lot of messiness going on, but I can pick out some of the highlighted lighter green shaded areas right on the I-95 corridor. That's really the only area of, looks like, the best potential for any shear, or I should say any rotation at this point. It's right on the I-95 corridor near Ormond by the Sea and Ormond Beach. As I take a look at the velocity, and Maureen's been talking about the velocities as well, we do have a little bit of a stray in color here. This lighter gray, almost green, is going toward the radar, and we see the wind going away from the radar in the brighter shades of red. Same thing down toward De Leon Springs. As a trained meteorologist here on radar meteorology, I'm looking for some light colors and some greens. Not seeing a huge evidence of that near De Leon Springs, but a little bit of the skewing with the red as well. So we batched this up with Klystron 13 and the radar reflectivity, and sure enough, we've got two different areas, two distinct areas. And I want to zoom in first on this Ormond by the Sea one. I'm also seeing something of interest here by De Leon Springs now that I zoom a little bit closer. But right now, we'll start with the Ormond by the Sea storm that is sitting on Pine Tree Drive and Highway 1. It looks like out toward Harmony Avenue. This one has a history of some rotation. It's broad, but obviously still there, and something that we need to monitor closely. As I mentioned, the potential for some of these to briefly touch down. Let me see if there's anything as far as damage. And what I'm looking at here in our debris detector, I'm not seeing any potential damage, but it helps us pick out what would not be raindrops or ice crystals, but maybe other particles, pieces of wood or leaves even, that are being picked up by radar, but not seeing that in Ormond by the Sea. Now I go back down toward De Leon Springs, and we've got a little bit of a radar dropout here, and this radar dropout itself is helping me pick out one of the dangerous spots on this particular storm. It just shrunk back, so again, not as big a concern on this one. It's kind of cycling through, and as I look at the various products here, I'm not expecting you to understand it, but I'm here to kind of walk you through where the most dangerous parts of these storms are located. This particular storm I mentioned is rolling to the northeast at 40. The one by Ormond by the Sea is moving so fast it's going to be offshore shortly, but the heaviest part of this storm here near De Leon Springs is going to be kind of following a similar path. Should be into National Gardens by 542, Tomoka Estates by 543, Ormond by the Sea at 547, and Mound Grove by 549. We do have other storms to discuss as well. I know I'm seeing images of damage over in the Crystal River area from storms earlier, so now we need to keep an eye on what's coming in off the Gulf. We do not have a current severe thunderstorm warning for Marion County, a number of other advisories and warnings in play, but we do have some strong storms. Looks like up in Alachua County also dealing with a strong storm. But let me take a look here, see what we've gotten. We're getting some wind that is starting to increase out north and west, or just to the west of Ocala. Bright greens, getting pixels that are indicating winds could approach 50 miles per hour. And again, we're getting up to the top of the radar, so be curious to see if this is actually starting to translate down to the ground. But at this point, we're still watching it because there's a tornado watch that's in play for this area as well. Let me go back in, put the advisories for rainfall, and as I zoom on in, we've got a flashing polygon here over Ocala, and this particular flashing polygon is a flood warning in place for central Marion County until 6:45. It does include the cities of Silver Springs and Ocala and the suburbs surrounding. Let's take a look at the rainfall that we've picked up. Not overly dramatic, but it is still raining heavily and not moving too fast over the Ocala area. We've had about 1.5 inches, and this is going to continue to climb. This is, again, radar estimates, and because the rain is coming down so hard, probably underestimating the rainfall total so far, so a couple of inches of rain. Back to our tornado warning, and as I put this on, two different areas of concern. One that is right over Ormond by the Sea and Ormond Beach. Another just north of De Leon Springs near Lake Woodruff. This is all moving off to the north and east. As I circle the two areas, we'll put the shear back on. Still seeing a little bit of brightness in our shear product, which indicates the best chance for some rotation. That is actually on the coast here by Ormond by the Sea. I want to take a look at the velocity, see what we've got. Yeah, we've got the brighter colors here as well. As I zoom on in, this one, if it were to be anywhere near the ground, which we haven't had a report of that, it would be near North Beach Beach Street right now in Ormond, looks like Ormond Lakes Boulevard and out over the A1A. So this one moving offshore fairly fast, but still the potential for some strong wind as well as that rotation. Winds that are outbound are about 50 miles per hour, inbound winds 3. So again, not huge, tight evidence of rotation, but still something that we need to watch because these storms have a tendency to rotate a bit on a day like today. We're also getting some lightning strikes. If you were with me last night, I tell you, we had no lightning at all with our storms, or I should say our showers, because they weren't storms. We had activity, we had tornado warnings, but we did not have any lightning. Today, lightning count down just a bit as well. What this is indicating is that we don't have a lot of ice crystals aloft, so I'm not expecting a big hail threat out of any of these storms, as the ice crystals aloft are melting because of all the warm air being pushed up. We've got a warm front positioning itself across the area, and that warm front allowing for the added lift in the atmosphere. You need something called SLIM. Shear, which is what we discuss, it's that twisting of wind or changing of direction and speed with wind as you go up through the atmosphere. You need the lifting mechanism. That would be our warm front coming in, plus an area of low pressure that is moving across the Gulf of Mexico and over North Florida today. You need the instability. We have greatly increased the temperature over the past couple of days, and you need the moisture, and it's evident as you step outside. Air you can wear is with us, and this is all coming together. You need the shear in particular to get yourself tornadic thunderstorms, and we have two cells in a tornado warning that pose a threat for what could be brief rotation or maybe a brief tornado. And again, seeing evidence of that, the Crystal River area, as we have damage that has actually occurred out toward Crystal River. Maureen?
All right, so thanks, Brian, for those updates and for the radar analysis as we've been watching that storm in Volusia County with a tornado warning. And remember, we have a tornado watch posted for much of Central Florida until 9 a.m. The concerns, though, have been north of Orlando. The energy has just been more apparent there with our area low pressure coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and these bands that have kind of been pivoting around it. So that has brought us to our several tornado warned storms. If you're just waking up, just joining us, this has been an ongoing threat for hours, and hopefully you're able to wake up by getting those notifications if there was a warning in your neighborhood. The active tornado warning that we have right now, as Brian was just mentioning, the storm that's in Volusia County, there are 2 pockets of rotation, one near Ormond by the Sea and one north of De Leon Springs. So you can tell that this polygon is shaped the way it is because of these 2 cells that have kind of been paired up as they came across Lake County, as they came across Sumter County. So these are moving along with a lot of forward speed. They're moving along really quickly. But if you live in Ormond Beach, Holly Hill, Daytona Beach, this is where these cells are going to be advancing in the direction of moving to the northeast around 30 miles per hour. And we've been looking at the different products here throughout the morning, looking at the shear rate to see where there could be some of these pixels that are lighter green, and that's where there could be some twisting of winds with height. Now with Ormond Beach, this is going to be a hazard for you, but finding a lot of this energy soon to be moving offshore. Yes, we have some lightning strikes being detected as well. So that is one component of this storm, and we can trace this back to other areas to the west in Volusia County, and that is where we have the other pocket of rotation that came through the De Leon Springs area, and that is going to be advancing also in the direction of I-95. Again, that is our rotation tracker. If you are just waking up, a reminder that we have a tornado watch posted. That warning is for Volusia County. That's our one active warning for our localized coverage area at this time. These spin-ups can happen quickly. They also can die out quickly. But remember the difference between a watch and a warning. The watch is that conditions are favorable, and we have that energy. Brian was talking about that very warm air, this warm front of volatile environment that will support severe weather, but we could potentially be getting into some tornado warnings as we've been seeing the last couple of hours. So remember, interior room or closet, get away from windows and doors, put as many walls between you and the outside of your home because of the threat of not only an isolated tornado, but the damaging winds that can still result from a severe thunderstorm. The storm that came through the Palm Coast area a little while ago. It was signaling some rotation, but we didn't have a tornado warning on it, but there was some very strong winds that could still get to 50 to 60 miles per hour. You're about to see another push of heavy rain come in from the west, so a heads up on that in Volusia County and in eastern Marion County. That's where we have some of that heavy rain. But our tornado warned storm is for Volusia County. It looks like that warning has been trimmed back a little bit on the western side. It goes until 5:45. That's why we have been in continuous coverage. We don't want to completely lose sight of how there are flood concerns too. And there is additional rain kind of training over the same areas coming out of the Gulf and moving into the Crystal River area, Denellen. Ocala has been in a flood warning for the last few hours that goes till 6:15. And while the rain has lessened in intensity there, it won't take much to induce any localized flooding on top of what has already occurred. So I know it's a busy map. There's a lot of different flashing polygons, but our imminent concerns for our localized coverage area at this time coming out of Volusia County, where we have this pair of storms. We can see it from a reflectivity standpoint. And now picking up on some of the magenta areas. Sorry, I wanted to go back to a different part of the storm. Wanted to show you where here in our tornado warning in Volusia County, where we have the reflectivity starting to pick up on some magentas, indicating that there's some heavier rain, but we can align this with the velocity. I'll look at one perspective of it, and you can see some of the red and the gray close together. This is State Highway 40, White Spruce Court, Pine Woods Road in Volusia County. Again, advancing towards the northeast. If you live in these areas, we're looking at bound by State Highway 40, you want to be seeking shelter immediately if you are just waking up. So we can look at that. We can also look at the shear rate, looking for these pockets of lighter yellow or light green to signal where there could be winds rotating with height, and that aligns in some of the same areas. If you look closely, you can see it there, and also a pocket right here just by Rima Ridge Road. So again, that's just one of the products that we use as we continue to monitor this tornado warning in Volusia County. We've been continuous with this, watching these storms evolve as they move across the Gulf, moved out of the Gulf and across the Florida Peninsula during the overnight hours. Here we are at 5:33. That warning goes until 5:45. If you're just waking up and you're noticing damage outside your house, you can let us know with pictures as long as you're in a safe place on the Spectrum News app. And you also can interact with us on social media. It really helps validate what we're seeing here on Klystron 13, with our main focus being Volusia County this morning. That red flashing polygon indicates where we have our tornado warning, but the magentas, the maroons showing up here, showing where there could be a more intense pocket of rain, but that also can align with where we have some rotation showing up. And that does seem to be a bit more apparent. Remember, the green means it's moving towards the radar, the red moving away, so we can see how that green is bound by some gray areas right there, which could mean that there could be some rotation. Again, this is on State Highway 40 in Volusia County, so a heads up to the east of this in places like Ormond Beach and Holly Hill, Ormond by the Sea. I'm just going to put a tracker on this while I have the view wide. Moving to the northeast at 30. These are some of our communities that could be impacted, including Holly Hill at 5:55, Ortona at 5:56. And I believe we have a camera that's available to show us Ormond on State Road 40. So this is right near there. We're looking off to the northeast, and you can see some flashes in the sky with some lightning nearby. And also there is some wet roadways. The camera's kind of shaking around a little bit, as it has been throughout the morning because of the windy conditions outside of the actual tornado warned storm. So that is one area that we have been focused on with the cell that's in Volusia County that has prompted our tornado warning, which has about another 10 minutes left on it, and it will continue continue to be a tornado-warned storm, so that's why you want to take this seriously and get into your safe place. I don't know if you're seeing anything else, Brian, that I missed while I'm at the wall. I'm just checking in on some reports.
We actually have a new tornado warning that includes Levy and Citrus County, but we are watching that one. It's going to roll and kind of clip northwestern Marion County, but overall also watching a cell that is in Marion County, and it could potentially, and notice that tornado watch box, oddly, and here's what we've got. We've got a big cutout southwest sections of Marion County. I'd go ahead and fill that in. We've got overlapping offices that issue warnings, and so one office is issuing a warning, the other is not, and I would say right now, if you are in Rainbow Lakes Estates and Denellen, you are included in this warning, okay? Let's just go ahead and draw that in, because that is also headed in your general direction. And Maureen, this one actually also tightening up a bit. I want to take a look here, a couple things. We'll start with the velocity, and notice we do have the reds and greens coming together, and this is northwest of Crystal River. We've got some green pixels going toward the radar, we've got some red going away from the radar, and this is where we're getting some indication of rotation coming onshore. This is northwest of Crystal River, and again, this is not in our particular viewing area, but it will eventually head that way as the storm is showing good signs of some rotation here out into Citrus County, heading up toward Levy and eventually into Marion County. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and put the radar back on. Klystron 13, we're at the very top of the radar. Actually, why don't I go ahead and take our sister station, Spectrum Bay News 9's radar, and this one will give us a better look at it since it's so far away from Klystron 13 over in West Cocoa. This one itself moving off to the north and east, and it's moving at upwards of 50 miles per hour. So get rid of the warnings here so they could track this out for you. The strongest part of the storm where the rotation is currently located at that rapid pace is going to be into, it looks like Denellen here by 5:56, Rainbow Lakes Estates at 5:57, Luttersville at 6:01, Hoyt 6:04, and Rainbow Park at 6:06. Again, this is giving those of you in Marion County a heads up that a storm that is rotating is moving in your direction. You've got plenty of heads up now to get to that safe place, interior room, away from windows, put as many walls between you and the storm as you can. Again, these storms have had a history of damaging wind and potential tornado touchdowns. As a matter of fact, Crystal River, there's images of damage coming out of Crystal River this morning. Back over to Klystron 13 and our local area as we are still watching the tornado warning cell that is up and now sliding. The one that was over Ormond by the sea in Ormond Beach is out, but the one right behind it heading right back over the same area. The strongest part of this storm, let's pick this one out. Let's see what we've got here. Get rid of the warning. Again, that's in effect until 5:45. We'll see if it's extended to this storm. Is moving fairly fast, so hopefully we'll get rid of it. As far as the shear, lime green, that's what I'm looking for. And I see a little bit of a skew toward the lime green. What about the wind? Yeah, we've got some brighter pixels of red, and that is, again, where we're looking at the possibility of strong winds that are going away from the radar. Green would be indicating winds going toward the radar. Hail, not a big threat today because it looks like Highway 40. So I know that in the back room we had that camera on 40. Keep an eye on that camera. And then anything on I-95 near Highway 1 all the way down to Highway 40 is where we could see this area of rotation as it slides into the Ormond Beach area. What I'm going to do is take a quick one. I'm not seeing much in this particular product, but again, if there's something that's going to be close to the ground, it's going to be just to the west of Priest Branch and south of State Highway 40. So let's get back into the 2D view here. And we do have a camera. This is out on Highway 1 and I-95. And you see the rain starting to come down. And it's coming down heavily, so visibility going to be coming down as well. But this is the area of concern right now. This is, again, out on Highway 1 and I-95 there in the Ormond Beach area. And this is going to continue to look a little rough for probably the next half hour as the storm continues to roll through. I'd say probably 20 minutes or so as this is moving fairly fast. But in any case, the strongest part of the storm is still heading in this general direction. So if you're heading out on the commute, I-95 between Highway 1 and Highway 40, Yeah, I just hold off for a bit. This storm has had a history of rotating and is still showing some indications. We're at the top of the radar here, so it's a little harder to actually really kind of indicate or pick out where the tightest rotation is, but I am seeing it. And I've switched radar, so I've got green going toward the radar in Jacksonville and red going away. Let me match that with, let's see here. I'm going to go over to the velocity out of our area, and yes, we've got the brighter pixel. That is wind that is outbound at about 38 miles per hour. Our inbound wind approaching maybe 30. As we've got a couple of pixels to pick on here. And let me go ahead and pop the shear rate back up. Still seeing a very light lime green, so no huge indications that the shear is good there for anything that could touch down on the ground. But again, that tornado warning is in effect until 5:45. For those of you right now in De Leon Springs, you're in the clear. Daytona Beach, you are in the clear. Daytona Beach Shores, South Daytona, you are in the clear right now. At least for this storm, okay? You're in the clear for this storm. For those of you at Ormond by the Sea, Ormond Beach, you are currently still watching the potential for this to rotate, touch down. Holly Hill, I just stay in your safe place right now, just in case. Right now, the way it's moving, you're gonna stay in the clear, but don't leave that safe place. Those of you at Ormond Beach and Ormond by the Sea, you are the ones who should be in your safe place right now, and that includes those of you over toward North Beach Street, Highway 1, Highway 5A, and even County Road, it looks like 2813. So, storm continues to show some heavy rain. Hail, not a big threat today. Looks like a little bit of shear, so I'm getting some updates on the radar. Yep, still getting some strong winds, inbound and outbound, and that is our concern, is that these are cycling a bit and trying to come down to the ground. Let me take the strongest part of this storm. I know it's raining heavily right now at Ormond Beach, but the strongest part of the storm, I'm going to get ahead of it here. It is moving to the northeast at 40, so that would put the strongest part of this storm in Tomoka Estates by 5:47, Ormond Beach by about 5:49, Eleanor Village at 5:50, and Ormond by the Sea 5:52. Again, I know it's raining heavily, but this is the rotating part of the storm that I'm watching closely. Back out, show you that we have a lot more activity trying to come off the Gulf of Mexico. Go back over to Klystron 9 over from our sister station Spectrum Bay News 9 and see what's in the Gulf. And each one of these little storms coming onshore will have the potential to rotate. That's why we've got the tornado watch. And we do have evidence of rotation that is sliding toward Marion County at this time. And this is why we have a tornado warning for Levy and Citrus County. This warning is in effect here until 6 o'clock. But I want to let you know that you can draw this in to Denellen, Rainbow Lakes Estates as well. This storm is headed in your direction. So the tornado warning, although you're not officially in it, this storm is headed in your direction, has had a history of rotating. As I zoom on in a little closer, again, this is out near Inglis. This is west of Denellen, but we are looking at a storm that does show signs of rotating. The green, and we're getting some light green going toward the radar. Red, it is going away right over Inglis at this time. Pixels, pick out some pixels, see what we've got. Not the strongest of wind, but we're also at the top of a radar, and so we're trying to sample something that's up there just a bit. So for those of you that are currently in line for this one, let me take the strongest part of the storm here, and I'll go back over to Klystron 9 there in Tampa. Let's see here. Start with, and we'll take a track on the strongest part of this storm. I'm going to get just ahead of it because it's moving fast. It's not going to give you much time. And here you go. For those of you in Marion County right now, should be in your safe place if you're in Rainbow Lakes Estates. Luttersville by 603, Hoyt 606, Rainbow Park, it looks like 608. Got a couple more that have appeared here now. Rolling Hills 609 and Early Bird by 611. These storms have had a history, and damage has trickled in. We had a report earlier of power lines that were down and a vehicle that was rolled over in a storm from Palm Coast earlier. This was at 4:50 this morning. The report came across that emergency management was reporting power lines down in a vehicle that was actually rolled over. Hopefully, people inside were safe, but overall, that threat still exists. And what I'm seeing here, Maureen, is it looks like the tornado warning has just expired for Volusia County.
Yeah, and it still bears watching as you've been seeing that rotation near Ormond Beach. That's the most intense part of that cell. And the warning, while that is going to expire, we do have that cell that is with parts of southwestern Marion County. And as Brian said, we have differing issuing offices that release these products. So that's why the polygon looks kind of ragged here, but you can anticipate that tornado threat to be there also for western Marion County, since we are going to continue to monitor that. There's also the cells that have passed through Ocala. These have also been flagged with maybe winds to 40 miles per hour near Anthony and Spar. So with the reflectivity called up here, you can tell that there are some heavy downpours. We also have the flood threats. We haven't been mentioning that as much. It still is a real concern. We're looking at some rain totals. This just reflects 3 hours. If I were to flip this over to 12 hours, you would see a much greater swath of very heavy rain. But it wouldn't take much for flooding to occur on top of what has already fallen. So just remember, that is one of the hazards we're looking at, but we're also looking at this wind shear, these winds rotating with height, and that has what has prompted our numerous tornado warnings that we've been watching the last few hours, with the one active warning near Denellen, near Crystal River. That is for Citrus and Levy County. It goes until 6 a.m. But should that rotation remain intact, an extension of that tornado warning not out of the question for Marion County. And you can tell it's a pretty good signature here of getting that shear. Again, we're looking at the Inglis and Yankeetown area. Citrus and Levy counties are the ones included in this tornado warning, but these streaks of yellow, these streaks of lighter green are where the radar is seeing those winds turning with height. So knowing that these are moving quickly to the northeast, eventually these will make it into Marion County. So you want to just be prepared to seek shelter. Denellen, Rainbow Lakes Estates, Marion Oaks, Bellevue, Ocala as well. Not a bad idea for you to keep an eye on these as the severe threat is there. Now keep flipping over to this product. We're seeing mostly rain, which is an ongoing hazard, especially when you talk about tornadoes that could be occurring at this time of day when it's still dark out. Plus you have the rain wrapped feature because of the heavy downpour. So that makes it hard to see these tornadoes visually. So we rely on radar and these signatures that we are trained to look for so that we can give you that advance warning should there be a tornadic cell. So again, this is where the focus is, southwest of Denellen. Go over to this radar site right here and you can see that there is a couplet of that red and green close together west of Denellen. So this is that rotation within the tornado warned storm. Again, we're looking west of Denellen, but just a heads up along County Road 40 that eventually this is going to be making its way towards Marion County. We'll be monitoring those winds also in Volusia County. Even though the warning has expired, the warning that has been prompted for near Ormond Beach, Holly Hill, and Rainbow Lakes Estates. You can see still some of those pixels nearby of the green and red close together where that rotation still could be occurring. Weak rotation at that, we don't have any active warnings, but we do want to continue to monitor any additional spin-ups that may happen in this environment. So wouldn't be surprised if we do get into additional warnings. Here we are at 5:49. We have been continuous for quite some time. And Brian, I don't know if you were thinking maybe we could go through this 5:51 weather.
Yep, that's exactly what I was just actually communicating in the back room, is that we go through the 5:50.
Okay, so we'll keep it here with weather on the ones through our regularly scheduled 5:51 weather. Get you caught up, and then Brian and I can get caught up because there could be more warnings coming based on this line that stretches back into the Gulf of Mexico. But if you're just waking up and you're watching from Sanford, Titusville, Orlando, Point South and East, fortunately, this has not been affecting you as much. The threat's still going to be there for additional storms storms to be pushing across the peninsula, but the threats are primarily in Marion and Volusia and Flagler counties. So for those just waking up, joining us for Weather on the Ones, we are planning on an unsettled day with additional rounds of showers and thunderstorms. It is going to be busy on Klystron 13, so just make sure you have those notifications turned on, and hopefully many of you did during the overnight hours to get these notifications about the tornado warnings and that we have had issued since after around 2:30 this morning. Well, the additional threat is there because we have the presence of a stalled front. So we're going to be in that warm and humid sector, an unsettled environment where there could be additional showers and storms. And that's what our big weather story is. A reminder that we have our tornado watch posted in yellow. The warning, which is issued by the Weather Service office in Ruskin. That's why this shape does not completely include Marion County. Wouldn't be surprised if that gets extended, though. So that's what we're going to monitor. Going to draw that front in more to the north now, and low pressure has pulled away. You can see how much it moved since yesterday. But we anticipate this to be a soggy day for us. Higher rain chances the more north you are. But then tomorrow, an additional round of showers and storms, and we really cut back on that rainfall coverage through the weekend. But a reminder that severe weather threat is there. It's not just tornadoes. It's the potential for winds that could be 58 miles per hour with any of the cells that form. Saturated ground with downpours training on top of it could also lead to localized flooding. So we'll have those flood advisories scrolling for you in the bottom part of your screen to let you know of any flood advisories. And of course, you can stay up to date with the Spectrum News app. But we do have that ongoing risk for severe weather today, and there also could be isolated tornadoes at any time. So that remains one of our hazards. Hail, as Brian mentioned, the atmospheric profile just not conducive for that today, but those strong winds are a hazard. We probably could bump up those bars for today. So quick check of your forecast numbers for today. 87 scattered strong storms, a hot and humid day, but this morning it's going to be Volusia, Marion counties. That's where some of these storms are potentially going to be strong to severe, and we will be keeping you up to date with what's happening. Brian's taking a closer inspection of what's happening perhaps here on the radar. We're looking at Marion County, that area of rotation coming out of Citrus and Levy County near Crystal River. That is going to be moving to the northeast. So a heads up if you live in Fellowship, in York, Rainbow Falls, and Ocala. This rotating storm generally sliding in your direction, moving along pretty quick. So the background winds also going to be a hazard for you. So we'll be back with another live update of your Weather on the Ones here at the top of the hour. We'll regroup and get all caught up on the latest warnings for you. But we can also send things over to Jerry because I know he's been watching the road since there likely will be some impacts due to the wet conditions.
Coming up to 5:54 here, we're going to take you to Volusia County. This is a look here at US 1 at I-95, and we are dealing with some of those slick conditions out there for that morning drive out there. And yeah, it's not looking great for that morning drive. In the metro area, clear conditions right now, but we've activated all of our icons indicating where we are seeing some crashes. Thankfully, not all crashes here have road blockage. We do have road blockage, though, at this one. I want to point it out to you. It's Goldenrod Road here at Lake Underhill Road. We're going to go farther north here, and we're still dealing with that wet weather here for that drive on 95 US 1. Slick conditions there in Volusia County and Flagler County right now. In Marion County, dealing with the brunt of it as well. This is I-75 here, and you can see we are dealing with some patches of some severe storms for that commute. Do want to take you to a crash here in Fort McCoy in Marion County. This is Northeast 31st Avenue at State Road 40. Another update coming up at 6. This report brought to you by your Central Florida Hyundai dealers.
Finally, we get to talk some sports. I'm Josh Miller. This is your Sports Minute brought to you by Spectrum One. 4 playoff spots remain up for grabs in the final weekend of NWSL play, and Orlando Pride, they're right in the mix. A 3-point win on Sunday over the Houston Dash. That would push the Pride from where they currently sit in 7th place to right in a position to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017. The team knows it's a big one. Margin of error on Saturday is very slim.
We need to find a balance and try to play every single game as a final and show like a high quality, because look like nothing come for free for us. I hope that we can show our best like game Sunday.
Anyone can beat anyone on the day, and that's the excitement of the league. It's whoever shows up on that day and gets the 3 points. And we have to control the controllables, which is ourselves, and it's just nice that we're going into the final game at home in front of our own fans.
And coming up tonight, preseason game number 2 for the Magic up in Cleveland. Looking to get better. Build off of that first preseason win. We got that and so much more. We'll see you tonight at 10:30.
I'm Tammy Fields. On the next Justice for All.
That's important to realize as well, that there's a strength in numbers, there's a strength of unity, and instead of trying to fight each other, obviously we need to maintain our own identity, but I think it's important that as a group we work together toward the betterment of the community.
National Hispanic Heritage Month is a time to reflect on the contributions and influence Hispanic Americans make to our history, culture, and economy. As Florida's Hispanic population continues to grow, what challenges lie ahead? Justice for All Hispanic Heritage Month, tonight at 7 on Spectrum News.
I'm attorney Todd Miner, a proud supporter of the fight against breast cancer. Now, here's a look at what's happening in our community.
If you are looking to buy property in the Lake Cumberland area, then contact the pros at Lake Cumberland Real Estate Professionals, now powered by Keller Williams Bluegrass Realty. We're always looking to improve and better serve our clients, and we now provide more resources, greater tools, and higher exposure. To find your dream home, search all local properties at lakecumberlandky.com or call us today at 606-677-0059. Count on the pros.
So beautiful.
Morning, Rob. Looking great.
Does that say USAA?
Yeah, USAA. Amazing home, auto, and life insurance. Plus banking and credit cards.
I'm in because of my dad. You think that'll finally get you in?
Probably not, but it looks great.
USAA, for the military community and their families.
Perfection.
Did you know that Cartown Kia has one of the largest pre-owned inventories in the region? And did you know that we source vehicles from all over the country? Not only will we pay top dollar for your trade, we'll buy from you even if you don't buy from us. So stop in today for a quick and easy appraisal, and while you're here, check out the new Kias arriving daily. There's never been a better time to upgrade your ride. Visit Cartown Kia or shop anytime at cartownkiausa.com.
At Horizon Health, we are dedicated to removing barriers preventing people from seeking care for their addiction. Our Campus of Care model provides quality addiction treatment and recovery services, basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, and private transportation services. Our licensed child care service and employment service are both offered to the community at large. For more information on these and other services, contact us at 606-657-2030 or visit us on the web at horizonhealthky.org.
The hot tub sale is going on now at Aurora. Hurry in to shop our selection of hot spring spas and get 0% interest financing for 60 months. This offer ends soon. The hot tub sale is heating up with hundreds of in-stock spas and 5-person hot tubs for only $49.95. Hurry into Aurora today.
Off the lightning, because sometimes when we're zoomed in, that can be a little distracting. But nonetheless, if you live in Dunnellon, if you live in far western Marion County and in the vicinity of Rainbow Lakes Estates, Marion Oaks, and Bellevue and Ocala, remember, in or around the warned area, you want to be seeking shelter. So that's what this polygon represents. It does include Dunnellon. It goes until 6:30. So the velocity has been picking up on the rotation that has been coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. There are additional couplets that are looming back to the south and west, but these have kind of been advancing onshore near Denellen. We can see that there are a few areas of some of these pixels that are close together where we have our tornado warning. These greens and reds close together signal how where the green pixels are, movement is towards the radar. I have the Tampa radar called up right now. In the red, that means it is moving away. Let me clear this out. I'm going to switch the radar site over just to be able to show you how this is going to be a cell that has potentially a rotating cell that's going to be moving in the direction of southwestern Marion County. So let me change this radar site over to the Jacksonville one, and it's kind of telling us the same thing. West of Denellen, we have this cluster right here that has some rotation associated with it, then also right there, that's where there could be some rotation. So going to have you, Brian, maybe just clear out that flight advisory box and clear out the warning. Thank you, because that was getting in the way of being able to interact. But we're looking at southwestern Marion County. When I go back over to the reflectivity, again, this is the more traditional view of the radar. You can tell that there is heavy rain regardless. So that is going to be a hazard with this in addition to our tornado warned storm as this advances. Brian, this one is moving to the northeast. Is it 30 or 40?
Let's see here. That one is moving to the northeast at, let's see, going through. There's so many advisories here.
But yeah, they've been moving along very fast. That's the bottom line. These have been moving along very rapidly. I saw some of the cells this morning in Volusia County moving as fast as 55 to 60 miles per hour. So you have the forward speed of these storms, which are moving along very quickly, but then you have the rotating winds and the wind speed associated with that. So you can tell that the shear markers, these yellow areas that are to the north of Denellen, that aligns with where there could be some rotation. Let's see if we can pick it up either here. Yes, you can see how there is kind of a change in the colors there north of Denellen, and also if we look at this product with the Jacksonville radar, again, you can see how there's some of that green and red closer together. So that is where we have our tornado warned storm, and it's moving to the northeast.
40 miles per hour.
30 miles per hour.
40 miles per hour, yep, 40.
So if we go back to the reflectivity, again, we can put the leading edge of some of this heavy rain in the start of the tracker as it moves off to the northeast around 40 miles per hour. It looks like I'm not able to get that the way I wanted to, but what I did want to show you is how these are moving along quickly. This is going to be one of our hazards. This is our active tornado warning. Thank you for doing that, Brian. Let me step aside so we can see the communities that are in the path. If you're just waking up, it's the top of the 6 o'clock hour. If you were just tuning in for Weather on the Ones and you're finding continuous coverage, you want to get in your safe place. You want to let this storm pass before you venture out off to work or getting to where you need to be this morning. If you live in these communities, we want you to be prepared, not scared. An interior room or closet, the best place to be if you live in Rainbow Park, if you live in Ocala Estates, Sherman Oaks, Fellowship. These communities are going to be stretching beyond where the polygon represents the tornado warned storm. But these have been extended. That's been the trend all morning long. We've been continuous since the better part of the last 4 hours throughout the overnight hours because of these storms, and tornado warnings just keep getting added on because these have a lot of forward speed and they are remaining intact. So just a heads up, in this community of southwestern Marion County, this is where we have our tornado warning, which is more serious than the watch, which has been issued for all of Central Florida outside of Osceola and Brevard counties. So Hoyt and Rock Springs are included in this, and also Denellen. These are some communities that are being affected. And O'Brien's keeping an eye on not only the radar, but any reports coming in. We had some damage initially being reported in Flagler County from some overnight storms. Brian, anything new coming in there with any reports in the chat?
Yeah, we actually had a report out of the Pine Lakes Apartments complex up there northwest Palm Coast, as we've got some pictures pictures of some trees down, fence that has been blown over, and obviously still dark. So I'd stay inside, let officials go out and do any storm surveying right now, kind of checking out what's going on. Once we get daylight, then we will have a better opportunity to see any damage that has occurred overnight. And I've removed all the flood advisories that are in play because right now there are a number of them, but right now our main focus is on the tornado warning, as Maureen has been talking this morning about these storms coming onshore with the potential for rotation. I'm going to take a look at some products here and see if I can pick it out. This is up toward the top of several radars, and that's what's going to make this a little more difficult, but I'm going to circle an area of concern. We've got the reds and the greens, and again, we're looking for bright reds, bright greens, but since this is a distance away from a number of radars, it's going to be a little harder to pick out. A little brighter indication here. I want to take a look back at Clystron 13. Looks like it's kind of outside of the main cluster here itself, but in any case, this storm has had a history of radar indicated rotation, and so we take a look at it as it's moving along, and I know it's raining in some of these locations already, but I want to get you a heads up for the strongest part of the storm as it rolls toward Rainbow Park by 6:09, Cotton Plant 6:12, into Mount Olive by 6:15, Fellowship at 6:18, and Golden Hills at 6:20. Now, we won't want to let our guard down because we're also watching two other rotating storms just offshore. I want to go back over and show you that we've got rotation that is offshore and west of Crystal River. This will eventually have the same vicinity of our current tornado warning, and we also have some offshore rotation in a couple of different other cells well offshore, but all heading to the northeast fairly fast at 40 to 50 miles per hour. So as we are now at 6:07, we're kind of going to stick with this coverage because the tornado warning does impact some of our viewing area. So back up to Marion County. We've got a warm front today, by the way, that is lifting north. You've probably already noticed how very warm and muggy it is. We're going to keep that warm air around for a couple days. We also have an area of low pressure pulling across the Gulf of Mexico. So in a setup like today, you need something called SLIM. Shear. Shear is that wind that changes direction and speed with height as you're going up through the atmosphere. You need shear to have a rotating storm. Okay, so we have shear in the atmosphere. We have lift. We have lifting mechanism. That is our warm front lifting on in. That area of low pressure also considered a lifting mechanism. You also have instability, temperatures that are very, very warm, and they've warmed quickly the past couple of days, and we also have the moisture in play, a lot of it. It's air you can wear day, and it's going to be that way through tomorrow as well. So back to our tornado warning. This is in effect until 6:30 for those of you in southwestern Marion County. If you were with us earlier, you were not in the polygon, and I kept drawing it in saying this is going to end up being in a warning at some point because the rotation was holding together. Well, at this point, not seeing as strong of an evidence of rotation, but we still need to be on guard because this is out in radar la-la land, unfortunately, and that means that we are looking into the radar at the very top, and so if something's translating to the ground, it's going to be harder to pick out. So for those of you right now in Dunellen, it looks like this is sitting right on top of you. This is crossing 80th Avenue Road, heading towards Southwest 100th Street here, just northeast of Dunellen. It looks like it's crossing Southwest 180th. Let me get rid of lightning. Eventually, this is going to be heading up over Southwest 41st Place, Highway 40 up here in western Marion County, County Road 328, just mentioning a few here so you have a heads up, Southwest 140th Avenue, Southwest 159th Court, Southwest 166th Court. All of you folks need to be in a safe place, okay? Safe place is an interior room away from windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside as you can. And wait the storm out with us. Hopefully you've got us on the app, or if you've walked away from the TV, maybe you've turned up the volume so you can hear us, our continuing coverage. Mallory, Maureen overnight. Maureen taking us through several hours of coverage, and now team coverage here as we are going to continuing to see storms move onshore. I'm going to go over to our sister station, Spectrum Bay News 9's radar, Clystron 9, because it's giving us a view out into the Gulf of Mexico. Clystron 9 and Clystron 13, both overlapping to give us the best coverage here in Central Florida, these storms as they're moving in. And each one of these storms today does have the capability of rotating. So our warned storm here, the tornado warning in effect for Marion County until 6:30. Mo, I'm not seeing any other information come in. This is starting to get a little broader. At this point, we're going to stick with it, obviously, because there is a warning. But right now, I'm just not seeing a tremendous amount of rotation in this, but it is some heavy rain. What I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to put back the flood warnings really quick. I want to point out that we have a number of them. And I do want to point out this one in Ocala because it is a flood warning, and this is in effect until 6:45. Let's take a look at rain totals. And I know that we picked up 2, 3, 4 inches of rain in this area. This is just the past few hours. So this is on top of what we picked up earlier, and the ground is starting to saturate, so we could have some minor flooding issues as the storm is moving on in. So again, watching around the Ocala and Silver Springs area, potential for some flooding. A flood advisory that extends all the way back into southwest Marion County. And then you see the higher totals actually in Flagler County, so I'm kind of surprised there's maybe not a flood advisory for this area. Out south of Bunnell, as we've had 2 to 3 inches of rain in a fairly short period of time. At this point, though, no advisory for you. So resetting the scene one more time, and let's see here. Going to get rid of the flood warnings just because at this point the flood warning and the flood advisory are least of concern when it comes to a tornado warning. But we've got that tornado warning for southwestern Marion County until 6:30. The storm itself is starting to roll out of the county. Not seeing a huge indication of rotation, but we are watching some bright pixels here and there. And it looks like wind that could be maybe exceeding 50 to 60 miles per hour. So if anything, strong wind is the potential here now to produce some damage as well. There's another 50 mile per hour pixel. And we're at the top of the radar, so we'll see if it's translating all the way down to the ground. But at this point, we are actually watching this storm produce some very heavy rainfall. Hi, Julie. Good morning. And it extends down to the rain. Heavy rain extends all the way toward Marion County at this point. I'm not sure if we're hearing Julie on air or not, but I'm hearing Julie in my ear.
Oh, okay.
Are you hearing Julie? Okay. I'm not sure if the control room can take Julie out of my ear. Thank you. Maureen, why don't you go ahead and walk us through radar?
Yeah, well, Brian, real quick, while you have the radar up, if you want to go back to the rainfall totals and look at 12 hours, while you keep it on that wide view, it's really interesting to see the storm training. You have 3 hours, but if you go into the radar and look at 12, it's interesting to see that swath of rain is aligned with how the storms were moving overnight and how they were over the same areas. So while we have the tornado concern as our main issue, heavy rain on top of what has already fallen in places like Volusia, Lake, and Sumter counties, that's where the rainfall totals have been much higher over the span. Last time I looked at it, it was some 4 to 5 inches, so wouldn't take much for additional flooding to occur. So just wanted to make mention of that. I know we have been heavy on the flood warnings, rather on the tornado warnings, and paying less concern to the flooding. Not to say it's not important, but when we have different things we need to balance, we have tornado warnings. And actually, Brian, it looks like that may have just come off the board with the active warnings. I see the warning layer is active, so that may have been discontinued. There's
see that it has been, which is interesting.
But that was supposed to go until 6:30, and I'm not seeing any initial reports of it. But nonetheless, we still want to pay close attention to it. What's happening in Marion County, as Brian mentioned, even without a warning, this is heavy rainfall. It's wind-driven rain. He was sampling some of those pixels of winds aloft that could be over 50 miles per hour, and everything is kind of training over the same areas. So this is a line of storms that extends into the Gulf. Marion County, you're getting that heavy rain in Denellen at this time, but this is going to be advancing quickly, moving towards Rainbow Lakes Estates, moving towards Bellevue, moving towards Ocala. You can see how within this frame of view, this is just racing along. We have the lightning turned off just because sometimes that can get a little distracting when we are looking very closely at some of these cells, but this has a history of producing rotation in the Denellen area. Let me pause this to show you the latest imagery. And as we've been saying, this is an area in central Florida that's kind of positioned at a distance from 3 different radar sites. So we don't get the most ideal vantage points. We want to be closer to the radar to have better resolution. But nonetheless, you can see this broad area of the green pixels right here and some red on the periphery. Again, nothing very tight, nothing overly concerning, but with a tornado watch in effect and previously a tornado warning, we want to make sure that we are still staying with this, knowing that there could be a spin up at any time. So here's another perspective. Let me pan down just a little bit near Denellen. You can see how there is some of this red and green close together, and we get those pixels aligned near one another. That is a sign that there is rotation in the atmosphere. So this is where we've kind of been seeing it all along. We're looking at Southwest 180th Avenue right here to get your bearings. And this is Southwest 100th Street. And this is in the Chatmar area. We are in far southwestern Marion County. Again, that's just one perspective. Let me go back over to the reflectivity. Nonetheless, this is very heavy rainfall. We can see that from a rainfall rate perspective as well, or rainfall totals perspective in this area. But I also want to go back over to the shear, and there's some lighter green, some yellow showing up here. And again, we're in that same area bound by Southwest 180th Avenue in the Chatmar area. This is Rainbow Falls, and this is all sliding off to the northeast very quickly. Here we are at 6:16, and from what I am seeing, not finding any active warnings based on this map either, but we can stick with this maybe through the 6:21 weather. Just letting the control room know we can stay live with this for a few more minutes to watch the storm as it moves through Marion County, see if any new updates coming in. That's what I'm looking down here at. I'm just trying to find the latest information coming in on my phone. See if
anything, Mo.
Okay, yeah, I don't see any alert that they discontinued it, but I also don't see it coming in on our maps either. And as we have seen with the rotation and the velocity, that couplet isn't as tight, isn't as strong. But the threat is still there. These storms have had a tendency to pulse up and then taper back down. So wouldn't be surprised if we get additional spin ups. The environment conducive for tornadoes, hence why we have that tornado watch that goes until 9 a.m. This was issued a little bit after midnight, and this is going to be something that remains with us until 9 a.m. because of the likelihood of rotating storms that may occur. Let me go back out to the reflectivity to show you the overall big picture of Classroom 13. If you're just waking up, just joining us, and you're thinking there is not any severe weather near me, the threats are primarily north and west of I-4, and I can roll this into motion to show you how we've had this train of moisture that has been moving through the Crystal River area, Denellen, and making a cut across Marion County towards Putnam County, Flagler County. Earlier today, earlier during the overnight hours, storms that moved across Volusia and Flagler counties. They were racing along. They are way offshore now, but they are going to be a hazard for the mariners. And off the west coast, these additional storms, we're going to have to monitor those for any additional rotations. So we don't have any active warnings by the way it looks at this time. Why not go in for another closer inspection of what's happening in Marion County, because nonetheless it is heavy rainfall and it is wind-driven rain. I was just looking at the hourly report out of Ocala Ocala Airport, and there it had wind speeds close to 20 miles per hour. So background winds are going to be an issue. But again, we're just looking at the reflectivity to see the rain. We also can see it from the perspective of DOT because we have a camera in Marion County that's available to us to show us those slick conditions. And I know Jerry Hume is monitoring as well. I-95 northbound, mile marker 349. This is looking to the north, and this is going to be where we have the potential for some slick conditions for the morning drive, wind-driven rain. That's Marion County. Earlier, you heard us talking about Flagler County. Brian, did you want to mention this? Or
this is Dave and Connie, and if you look closely in the middle of that picture here in Palm Coast, that is a car on its side, and there were indications. Now, Maureen, you were on earlier with the cell in Flagler County, and this did show some signs of rotation, didn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And we were watching it with rotation. There were 2 severe thunderstorm warnings needed. That storm came out of Marion County, where it had a history of being tornado warned. I believe there were 2 warnings in Marion County. It advanced across Lake George, it advanced towards Flagler County, and we were picking up on those winds right around the Palm Coast area. So damage doesn't surprise me, knowing that the wind speeds were evident there on Klystron 13. But when you see it validated by a photo, I mean, that's a car on its side. So, yeah, that was in the Palm Coast area. Brian, you said that report was submitted close to 5 a.m.?
It doesn't have a time on it, but the actual...
It's during the 4 o'clock hour, I believe,
I think you're right.
Flagler County saw those impacts. So thank you, Dave and Connie, for sharing this. I've been checking the app, waiting for pictures coming in. Of course, it's the overnight hours. People are just waking up, and we are hoping that we can get more photos coming in if you have them, as long as you're in a safe place to share those with us. You can also post them on what was formerly known as Twitter at MyNews13 Weather or at Maureen McCann 13. You can find both Brian and I on there. But that is just one picture that validates what happened in Palm Coast earlier today. So here we are, 6:21. We ordinarily check in with weather on the ones at this time. We don't have any active warnings, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get into more based on the hints of rotation we're seeing in some of these cells coming off the Gulf. So we'll continue through this installment of weather on the ones. We'll send it back to news to get you caught up, and we'll get caught up as well. But we're here with team coverage to monitor these storms as they traverse the peninsula. Everything you see out in the Atlantic, that is what did move across Volusia, Flagler, Northern Lake and Sumter County. So we're looking at the reflectivity. I want to, while we're here, just go pause this to show you the latest imagery. A lightning count isn't all that impressive. Lightning count can be correlated to the intensity of storms, and we can watch that lightning count. That can tell us if storms are intensifying or if they are dying off. So that is good news to find that there's not a lot of lightning. Our previously tornado-warned storm in Marion County producing very heavy rain over I-75. We just saw that traffic camera. I wanted to look at the shear rate here, and it looks like northeast of Silver Springs and moving in the direction of Reddick. Some of these pockets of yellow showing up. So we are going to be looking at some of the potential for some weak rotation there. This is how it looks out on the roads there on I-75. Thank you, Brian, for putting in my 21 because my 21 weathercast, because I wanted to hit play on this because I have some information to pass on to you that our severe weather threat is still present for us today. Isolated tornadoes not out of the question, and we're in this unsettled stretch through tomorrow and even on Saturday, a few leftover showers. So we're looking at the area low pressure pulling into North Florida that is associated with the stalled front. Warm fronts, stalled boundaries, areas of differing winds can create these cells that can train over the same areas. So not a good day for beach or boating plans if you are north of Orlando. If you are to the south, Brevard County, just a heads up that there could be some storms later on. Check in with Klystron 13. The ocean conditions hazardous regardless. So winds from the southwest today, pumping in that warm, humid air. The boaters, you're going to notice that. It's going to be pretty choppy out there on the intracoastal, wave heights 3 to 5 feet. Again, we want to catch you up with your regular weather information, too, to let you know what to expect throughout this Thursday as the severe threat shifts to the northeast initially, but then the environment is going to be favorable for additional showers and storms. That's why we continue with that potential during the afternoon hours. Quick check of those forecast numbers. It's going to be a windy day. A wind advisory was also issued for today. Brighter, drier, quieter weather awaits the second half of the weekend and early next week.